Yeah, good afternoon, guys. So, in the last session, we discussed about what is the Docker. In the last class, we covered so far what is Docker and why Docker, and we discussed about Docker architecture, okay, and Docker setup, Docker commands, and discussed about Docker file, right? Fine. What is a Docker? Can you tell me what is a Docker?
Containerization.
Docker is a containerization software that is used to containerize our application. So any application that we have, we can execute that in any computer by using Docker. If Docker is not available, we need to install softwares in the computer to run the application. We may face a lot of problems with the software installations because of the version mismatch. To avoid those problems, we are using Docker. Why we need to go for Docker? To containerize our application, to execute our application inside the container, we are going for Docker. With the help of Docker, we can simplify application deployment process in any computer. Now, here, Docker architecture. When you go for Docker architecture, Docker file will be available. By using Docker file, we will create a Docker image. Using Docker image, we can run the Docker container. Container nothing but runtime instance in which our application will be executed. Docker setup, we have taken Linux machine. We have taken one Linux machine. In that we have installed Docker. Then Docker commands. Docker pull, Docker pull, Docker run, Docker RMI, Docker RM, okay, Docker build. Like that we have seen several Docker commands. What is the purpose of Docker file? What is a Docker file? What is the purpose of Docker file? Docker file will contain the instructions to build our Docker image, right? So what dependencies that are required to run our application, we will specify them in the Docker file. We have seen Docker file keywords. What are the keywords available? From keyword, maintainer, copy, add, workdir, run, cmd, expose, entry point, volume, arg. Like that, there are several keywords are available. What is the purpose of from keyword? From is used to specify base image to create our image. For example, I want to run boot application. To run the boot application, Java software is required. We will specify Java as a base image. Maintainer is available. Maintainer is used to specify Docker file author. Who developed that Docker file, we will specify by using maintainer. Next one, copy will be available. What is the purpose of copy command? It is used to copy the files from source to destination. For example, my project jar file is available in the target directory. I want to copy that into container machine. Okay, for that we will go for copy. What is the purpose of add command? Add is also used to copy, whereas copy will support one path to another path. Add will support the URL to the path. Then what is run command? What is the run? Run is used to execute instructions while creating our Docker image. For example, I want to install some software, or I want to download the code. I want to package the code while creating the image. That command can be executed by using run. Run instruction will execute while creating Docker image. Then what is CMD? CMD is used to execute instructions while container creation. When we run the Docker image, that container will create. At the time of container creation, if you want to execute some command, then we can go for CMD. Then we have work dir. What is the purpose of a work dir? It is used to specify our working directory. Entry point is also used to execute the instructions while creating the container. And the next one, expose is available. Expose is used to specify container running port number. On which port number our container will execute. That can be specified by using expose keyword. When somebody look at the Docker file, they should understand on which port number our application will run. Okay, our application will be executed inside a container. What is the port number of the container? Container port number we can specify by using expose keyword. Okay, expose only for reading purpose, guys. If I specify expose as 9090, it doesn't mean that container will run on the 9090. So whatever container is using, we need to specify for the readability purpose. That's it. So it is when someone look at the Docker file, they should understand which port number container will use. For that, we are going to use expose. By using entry point, we can run our application. Entry point, I'm going to specify Java -jar and I will specify SB REST API.jar file. So there, entry point is used to execute the instruction while creating our container. Expose is used to specify container port number. That's it. So these are some keywords we are going to use to create the Docker file. Once the Docker file is created, we can build Docker image by using Docker file. What is the command to build the Docker image? Sudo docker build -t image namespace dot. With this, Docker file will be created. The default name for the Docker file will be like this. If you want to change the file name, you can pass the file name as a input like this. Now, let me connect with my Docker machine. Go to AWS Cloud. Log in into AWS Cloud. AWS account. We have taken one virtual machine. In that virtual machine, Docker is running. Go to instances. Docker VM currently in the stopped state. Let's go and start that machine. Docker machine is getting started. Docker VM. Refresh. Yes, machine got started. Go to public IP address, mobile extram. Open. Remote host, Ubuntu, private key. Okay. Yes, fine guys. So with this, we are able to connect with Docker machine. Now, let us verify sudo docker images. Right. There are some images available. I want to delete everything. Can you tell me command to delete everything? Sudo docker system prune -a. It will delete everything which is available. All the images, unused images, stopped containers, everything will be deleted when you go for system prune. Now, ls-l, you can see that there is a Docker file is available. Cat Docker file. Now, you can see from is available, run available, cmd available. Now, you can edit the Docker file, insert mode. You can specify expose. What is the meaning of expose? on which port number container will run. Like that we can specify expose. Here you can specify work dir /user/app. Like this we can specify work dir. Fine. So this is my Docker file. Save this file. Okay. By using this file, I want to create a Docker image. Do you know the command to create the Docker image? Come on. What is the command? First, let me check any image available in our machine. What is the command to check the images? Sudo Docker images. Any image available? No. How to create the image? Sudo Docker build -t. I will create this as first image. First image space dot. What is the purpose of dot? To tell that Docker file is available in the present working directory. Now execute it. Yes, fine. So it is trying to create Docker image. When it is creating Docker image, you can see run statements got executed. Run statement will execute while creating the image. Now check the images available. Sudo Docker images. Yes, one image got created. Now, can we run that image? How to run the image? Sudo Docker run image name. First -image. Okay. Now what happened? How are you? That means container got created. Why how are you message is coming? Why how are you message is coming? CMD is executing. When the CMD will be executed? CMD will be executed when the container is getting created. Okay. Run will execute when the image is creating. CMD will execute when the container is creating. Okay. I am able to create one Docker image in my system. Now I want to store the image in the Docker Hub. I want to store my image in the Docker Hub so that anybody can take my image and they can run my image. How to store our image in the Docker Hub? First, let me go to Docker Hub account. First, let me go to Docker Hub account. We need to create one account in the Docker Hub. Let us log in into the Docker Hub account. Okay. Yeah, I logged in into my Docker Hub account. You can see the Docker images which are available. You can see the images which are available in the Docker Hub account. Now, I want to store this image, whatever the first image available, I want to store that image into my Docker Hub account. To do that, we need to first tag the image. We need to tag the image. Let us see how I am going to tag the image. Sudo Docker tag. What is the image name? First -image. I will tag it Ashok IT /first -image. So tagging nothing but I'm specifying my username in the image. When you are tagging, you need to specify your username in the image. Now, with this, I have tagged my image. Once the image tagging is completed, I need to log in into my Docker Hub account and I need to push my image. Okay, sudo Docker login. When I'm executing login command, it is asking me my username. Docker Hub account is available. Docker Hub account username we need to enter. That username, Ashok IT password we need to enter. Yes, now you can see login got success. Once we are able to log in into the Docker Hub account from the Docker machine, now we can go for sudo Docker push Ashok IT / that image name. That is first image. Now enter. So with this, whatever the image I have created, I tagged that image. Now I'm pushing that image into my Docker Hub account. Image push got success. Now go to our Docker Hub, refresh the Docker Hub. Now you can see few seconds ago, first image got pushed into Docker Hub account. Now anybody can pull that image, they can run that image. Okay, what I have done to do this, I have done Docker build -t image name with the dot. So here I'm creating Docker image. Create Docker image. Okay, once I have created the Docker image, I'm going for tag Docker image. Tag Docker image. How I am tagging? Sudo Docker tag image name, and I am giving tag name. Image name I have given, tag name I have given. Example. So here I have given sudo Docker tag image name is first image, tag name Ashok ID / first image. You need to give Ashok ID is my username. You need to give your username. Once the tag is completed, login into Docker Hub account. Okay, login into Docker Hub account. For that we use a command called Docker login command. Once we log in, it will ask our username and password. Once it is completed, push Docker image to Docker Hub. Push Docker image to Docker Hub. What is the command to do that? Sudo Docker push our image name or tag name. We are going to push by using tag name. Whatever the tag name we are giving, by using tag name, we are pushing our image. Go here and refresh. Whatever the image we pushed, that image we can see in our Docker Hub account. My first image got pushed into Docker Hub account. Anybody can pull my image. What is the command to pull the image? Now verify. Sudo Docker system prune -a. I'm deleting everything. Okay. Sudo Docker images. Anything available? No. Can I pull the image now? Yes. How to pull that image? Sudo Docker pull Ashok IT / first -image. Yes, that image I'm downloading. That is a public image. Anybody can download that image. Once the image got downloaded, can we check that? Sudo Docker images. Yes, we got that image. 6 minutes ago, that image got created. Can we run that image now? Yes. How to run that image? How to run the image, guys? Sudo Docker run image ID or image name. So with this, we are able to, oh, sudo spelling mistake. Sudo Docker run. Are we able to run the image? Yes. Online people, can you pull my image and can you run my image? You can pull my image, you can run my image. Okay. This is my image name. Anybody can pull and anybody can run my image. Online students, can you do that? Try to pull it and let me know. Are you able to pull? Try to pull it and let me know. Are you able to pull that or not? Online students. Online students. Please confirm. Are you able to pull the image and are you able to run the image? Online students, please confirm. Try to pull the Docker image and run the image and let me know. Are you able to pull this? Yes. Guys, what is the difference between Docker push and Docker pull? Docker push is used to store our Docker image to Docker Hub account. What is a Docker pull? It is used to download the Docker image from the Docker Hub account. Okay. Now, Docker Hub. Okay. What is Docker Hub? Why we need to go for Docker Hub? Docker Hub is a registry where we can store our Docker images. All right. Fine, guys. Now, how to Dockerize Java web application. I want to Dockerize one Java web application. There is no Spring Boot. It is a normal Java web application which is created by Maven. Okay. Now, so to Dockerize Java web application, we need to create a Docker file. Okay. If you want to Dockerize any application, we need to create Docker file. So in this Docker file, we will write the instruction. Once the Docker file is available, using that Docker file, we need to build Docker image. That Docker image you can store in the Docker Hub account and you can run the image. When you run the Docker image, then Docker container will be created. Inside the container, our application will be executed. File we will write, create the image from that. From the image, run the container. If you want, you can store the Docker image into Docker Hub. By using Docker push command, you can store the Docker image into Docker Hub account. All right. Now here Docker Hub account will be available. You can store the image in the Docker Hub. Once the image is available in the Docker Hub, we can pull that image into any system and we can run that image, then container will be created. Now, let us go for how to Dockerize Java web application. Java web application will be packaged as WAR file. If you go for Spring Boot application, it will be packaged as a jar file. If you go for normal Java web application, it will be packaged as WAR file. WAR file we will deploy in Tomcat server web apps folder. WAR file we will deploy in the Tomcat server web apps folder. Now, how to Dockerize Java web application? Java web application will be packaged as WAR file. WAR file we will deploy in Tomcat server web apps folder. Here, do I need to download the Tomcat server or can I tell to Docker to download the Tomcat? Do I need to download Java? No. Do I need to download Tomcat? Do I need to deploy the WAR file to Tomcat or I can tell to Docker to download the Tomcat, deploy the WAR file to Tomcat? Docker can do the work. Docker can do the work. How to tell the Docker, I need a Tomcat, take the WAR file, deploy the WAR file into the Tomcat server. How can we tell to that to Docker? By writing a Docker file. So in the Docker file, I'm going to specify from, I want Tomcat server. I want Tomcat server. You take my WAR file, copy. In the target directory, my WAR file will be available. you go to that, you take that war file, okay? You go to some Tomcat directory, web apps directory will be available. You copy that war file. That's it. So just you take the Tomcat server, you take the war file from my system, keep in the Tomcat server available in the container. So here, and I'm going to specify expose 8080. What is the meaning of expose 8080? Tomcat server will run on the 8080 port number. But is it mandatory to write it? No, it is optional. It is just to tell the others on which port number our container is executing. All right. Now, here, let me go for Maven web application. I have here repository. So, Maven web application is available. Okay. Maven web application is available. In the Maven web application, can you see what is this? Docker file is available. Open the Docker file. Can you see what content is available in the Docker file? From keyword is available. What is the from keyword? Base image. What is the base image I want? Tomcat with JRE. So it will download the Java. It will download Tomcat server. Then what I am telling? Copy. What is the meaning of copy? Take the war file from the target directory and keep that in the Tomcat server web apps folder. When I specify from Tomcat, Docker will download the Tomcat server into this location. User local Tomcat. In the Tomcat web apps will be available. In that web apps, you keep the war file. Then run the application. That's it. If you want to run your Maven web application, you need to write the Docker file like this. That's it. Okay, guys. Now, go to our machine. Go to our machine. Clear. Okay. ls-l. Docker file available. Remove the Docker file. Okay. I have removed. ls-l. No files available. Okay. Sudo docker system prune-a. Delete everything. Everything is deleted. Nothing is available in my machine. Sudo docker images. Anything is available? No. Next, I want to download this project, Maven web application from the GitHub. I want to package this project and I want to run the project by using Docker. How can I do that? Take the code. I want to clone the project. To clone the project, what is the command? Git to clone repository URL. Okay. I'm trying to clone the application. Application cloned successfully. Now, ls-l, Maven project, cd space Maven application, ls-l. Okay. Maven project is available. Okay. Inside this project, target directory is available. What will be there in the target directory? ls-l target. What will be there in the target directory? War file is available. If the target directory is not available, we need to package the project. How to package the project? MVN clean package. Then project will be packaged as a war file. So already war file is available in the target directory. Docker file is also available. Let me print the content of the Docker file. What is there in the Docker file? From is available. Copy is available. Now, what is there in the from? Tomcat. What is the meaning of from Tomcat? What is the meaning of from Tomcat? I'm telling that I want a Tomcat server to run this application. What is the meaning of copy? My project contains a war file. You take the war file from the target directory. You deploy in the Tomcat server web apps folder. Are you clear with this? Now, next. Docker project is ready. War file is ready. Docker file is also ready. Docker file we will keep in the repository only, guys. However, project is available in the GitHub. Within the project, Docker file is also available. That Docker file contain instructions to create the Docker image. Now, can you tell me the commands? I want to create Docker image for my application. I want to run that application by using Docker image. Can you tell me the commands? Yes. Already I am in the application directory. In my application, Docker file is also available. What is the next step? What is the next step now? What I need to do now? I need to create the Docker image. To create the Docker image, what is required? Code is required, Docker file is required. Code is already available, war file is available, Docker file is also available. Code available, Docker file available. How to build a Docker image? Come on, what is the command to build the Docker image? Sudo docker build -t image name. I'm taking image name as web application. You can give any name for the image. I'm giving the image name as web app space dot. Why dot? Current working directory. Execute. Now you see, it is creating Docker image. Yes, finally, Docker image got created successfully. Now go for sudo docker images. Can you see the image with a name called web app? Yes, image got created. Now I want to run the image in the detached mode with the port mapping. Can you tell me how to run the image? Sudo docker run -d -p 8080:8080 space. What is the image name? Web app. So with this, what will happen? Container will be created. Inside the container, our web application will be executed. Sudo docker run -d -p 8080:8080 space image name. Execute. Yes, image got created. So do you know how to check the image got executed, container got created? Do you know how to check the containers? How to check the containers? Sudo docker ps. Yes, container got created. What is the port number? 8080. Now let us go here. Check that on this machine security group 8080 is enabled or not. Inbound rules. Go to inbound rules, security group, and inbound rules. Which port number enabled? 9090. Our application is running on which port number? Our application will run on the port number 8080. Click on save rules. So with this I have enabled the port number. Go to the dashboard, instances, Docker, take this. Now go here, colon 8080. Okay. Public IP colon 8080. What is coming now? Tomcat dashboard is coming. That means a container we are able to access. Our application available inside the container. So we need to specify context path. What will be the context path? War file name will be the context path. Now specify that context path. Are we able to access our web application now? Yes. Where that web application is running? Our web application is running inside the Docker container. Did I download the Tomcat server? Did I download Java? Nothing. Everything is taken care by Docker container. Now, anybody who want to run my Java web application, they just need to download my Docker image and they need to run my Docker image. So in this, we are able to run our Java web application as a WAR file using Tomcat server. Now, look at the Docker file here. So this is our Docker file. Okay. Java web application will be packaged as WAR file. WAR file we will deploy in the Tomcat server web apps folder. Below is the Docker file to Dockerize. Below is the Docker file to Dockerize Java web application. Below is the Docker file to Dockerize Java web application. From Tomcat. Copy war file available in the target directory. Then I'm copying that into Tomcat web apps directory. Okay. Now git repo, I'm giving get repo for my project. So project is available in the git repository. You can clone the project and you can practice this. It is a normal Java web application. Okay. This is git repository of the project. Now below is the Docker file to Dockerize Java web application. So if you want, you can specify expose also. What is the meaning of expose? To specify on which port number our container will execute. Our container will execute on the port number 8080. Container will execute on the port number 8080. All right. So look at this. How to Dockerize Java web application. Simple. Are you able to understand this Docker file? Yes. Now, how to Dockerize Spring Boot application? Okay. It is a normal Java application which is not using Spring Boot. So normal Java application will be packaged as war file. For the war file, we are using Tomcat server for the execution. Now, how to Dockerize Spring Boot application? How to Dockerize Spring Boot application? Okay. What is the difference between normal Java application and Spring Boot application? Normal Java application, we need to deploy in the server. But for Spring Boot application, guys, embedded server will be available. We no need to deploy that into any server. Spring Boot application will be packaged as a jar file. Spring Boot application will be packaged as jar file. Spring Boot provides embedded server. Spring Boot provides embedded server for web applications. Okay. We will execute Spring Boot application as a jar file. To run the Spring Boot application, we need to run jar file. Server is required or server is not required? Server is not required. If it is a normal Java application, we will package it as a war file. That war file we will deploy in the server. Whereas when we go for the Spring Boot application will be packaged as jar file. To run the boot application, we need to run the jar file. Boot provides embedded server for the web application. So here, let me take Docker file for the Spring Boot application. Now, how to write the Docker file for the Spring Boot application? We are going to specify OpenJDK 11. What is the meaning of OpenJDK 11? What is the meaning of that? I want Java software to run the application. Okay. Next one. Here I'm going to specify copy target app.jar file to user app space app.jar. So boot application will be packaged as a jar file. Jar file will be created in the target directory. From OpenJDK 11, copy the jar file from the target directory to user app directory. Once it is copied, I will specify work_dir as user app. Why I will specify work directory? The jar file is copied to that location. Now I am going to specify expose 8080. What is the meaning of expose 8080? Spring Boot application will run in the Tomcat server. Tomcat server will run on the 8080 port number. How to run the Tomcat server? How to run the jar file? I'm going to specify entry point. In the entry point, I will specify Java -jar. What is the jar name? App.jar. That's it. So this is the Docker file to Dockerize boot application. When you go for interview, they will ask this question. Can you write the Docker file for the Spring Boot application? So you should write the steps like this. If anybody asks you, can you write the Docker file for the normal Java web application? This is the Docker file. When you want to Dockerize the Spring Boot application, this is the Docker file. Can you see here, what are the keywords I'm using? From keyword, copy keyword, work directory, expose, and entry point. What is the purpose of from keyword? Base image. So I want to use Java software to run the application. Now you may get a doubt. Then why we are not specifying Java here? We are specifying Tomcat. Tomcat is developed by using Java. So to download the Tomcat, Java is required. So here Docker will download the Java, then it will download the Tomcat. For the Spring Boot, Tomcat is required and Tomcat is embedded. That's why I'm specifying base image as Java dependency. Okay. So here the Docker file for normal Java application, the Docker file for the Spring Boot application is different. Okay. So normal Java application will be packaged as a war file. That war file we are going to run by using Tomcat server. This is our system path where the war file is available. This is the container path. In the Docker container, Tomcat server will be downloaded. This is the path of the container, which is by default. Okay, guys. Now here, this is the path of our system where the jar file is available. What is this path? Docker container path. What is a Docker container? It is a Linux machine. Docker container is a Linux machine. In the Linux machine, this path will be available. In that path, jar file will be copied. Then go to that jar file and execute the jar file. This is the Docker file for Dockerizing the Spring Boot application. In the video also, I explained the same thing. How to write the Docker file for the Spring Boot application. Now, so here, let me take one Spring Boot project, which is available with the Docker. In our Git repository, it is available. Okay. So Spring Boot Docker application is available. Now, go to this. Can you see what is this? Open. Yeah. Can you read this? Can you see the Docker file? Are you able to understand the Docker file? Are you able to understand this Docker file? From OpenJDK, copy the jar file from the target directory to user app directory. Then go to that user app directory. Then execute the jar file. Okay. Now, let me clone this project. Clone this project. Copy this. Clone this project. Okay. Now, clear. I'm in the Linux machine. ls-l. How to clone it? Git clone. Okay. I'm cloning my boot application. ls-l. Okay. Spring Boot Docker app I have cloned. cd space Spring Boot Docker app. Now ls-l Docker file is available. Okay. Can we see the content of the Docker file? VI Docker file. Now see the content. From is available. Open JDK colon 11. Copy jar file from the target directory to Docker container. Then go to that directory by using work dir. Then run the jar file by using entry point. If I want to specify container port number, how I am going to specify? Expose 8080. That is just readability. People will understand that container will run on the port number 8080. So this is my Docker file for the Spring Boot application. Okay, guys. Same concept. When I teach to the DevOps people, in the DevOps, most of the people are non-IT people will come for the DevOps. Who is having some career gaps, who want to enter into the IT, those people will come for the DevOps by thinking that coding is not required for the DevOps. Coding is very difficult. So that's why people will go for the DevOps batch. For them, I will struggle a lot to teach the Docker file. Because when I am teaching the concept for the programmers, when I'm teaching the concept for the non-programmers, the way how they will understand the concept is very different. As you already from the programming background, easily you are able to understand the Docker file. For them, it is very difficult to understand the Docker file. We will teach 3 days, 4 days how to write the Docker file. That is the difference between the programmers and non-programmers. Programmers will have grasping power. Programmers can easily understand the concept. Non-IT people, the people who don't know programming, they will understand. Why to specify Java here? Why to specify jar here? Why are you keeping in the double quotes here? Okay. So n number of, what is this target directory? Java file, sometimes you are saying var file, sometimes you are saying jar file. What is var? What is jar? When to go for var? When to go for jar? Such kind of questions will come. And they will ask one more question. You are saying that here Java application only, Spring Boot also Java application only. You are saying Tomcat. Here you are saying Java. We are not understanding. Both are Java only. Sometimes you are saying Tomcat. Sometimes you are saying var. Sometimes you are saying Java. Sometimes you are saying jar. To teach these 2 examples, we will take 4-5 days for the DevOps batch. Are you understanding why programming is important? So if you learn the programming, you can learn any technology. Programmers will have the grasping power. As I am from the programming background, easily I can teach that Docker Kubernetes. But for them, it will take time to understand the concept. So that's why as a fresher, we should not go for DevOps or data science or Hadoop or Pega. As a fresher, you need to become a programmer first. Programmers can do anything in the IT. We can develop any kind of application. We can work on any technology if you know the coding. That's why coding knowledge is very, very, very important. Now, yeah. So with this, we are able to understand how to write the Docker file for the Spring Boot application. Okay. Now, fine. Docker file is available, ls-l. When the Docker file is available, can we create Docker image for that? With the Docker file, can we create the Docker image? Can you tell me the command? Very good. Sudo docker build -t space boot image space dot. What is the boot image? Name of the image. Now, if it is success, very good. If it is failure, we need to understand the reason. Are you clear, guys? Now, enter. Boom. Failed. Can you read that? Now, image created successfully or image not created successfully? Image not created successfully. Where it failed? Copy command is failed. Why copy command is failed? It is trying to copy the jar file from the target directory to container directory. In the target directory, first of all, do we have target directory? Jar file is available or jar file not available? Earlier in the Maven war file we have by default because the target directory available. But in this application, target directory not available, jar file is not available. When I am trying to create the image, it is executing my Docker file content. Okay, copy is available. It is looking for the jar file in the target directory to copy to the container directory. First of all, that jar file is available or not available? Not available. Copy failed. That's why image creation failed. How to solve this problem? First, we need to package the application as a jar file. You check it. Target directory available or not available? Not available. What we need to do now? What we need to do now? We need to package our application. Come on. How to package our application? MVN clean package. Okay. Failed. See that. What is that? Sudo apt install Maven. What it is saying now? Maven software is not available, boss. You install the Maven, then you can package by using Maven. So see the beauty of the Linux. They are giving the command also to install the software. Now, Windows is good or Linux is good? Linux is good. Yes, Maven is installing. In the Windows, download the Maven, set the path for the Maven, set the Maven home. Lot of things we need to do. Maven is downloading. All right, guys. Maven is downloaded. Now, can we package our application? Yes, clean package. Check it. Downloading the dependencies. Yeah, finally, build got success. Okay, go for ls-l. Now, can you check target directory created? cd space, sorry, ls-l space target. Now, jar file got created. You see here, I should give the same jar file name in the Docker file. So jar file name spring boot -docker app.jar. So check the Docker file. Same name is available or not? Yes, same name it is trying to copy. Okay. So with this, we are having our Docker file and our jar file. Now, tell me, I want to create the image. Come on. Sudo docker build -t boot image space dot. Yes. Yeah. Image got created successfully. How to verify? Sudo docker images. Yes. Boot image got created just 8 seconds ago. Now I want to run that image. When I run the image, what will happen? Container will be created. Okay. Sudo docker run -d -p. Now port mapping. Already 8080 used by web application. Can I use the same port now? No. So what I need to do? 9090. I need to go for 9090 colon 8080. Here in this application, did I change the port number? Let me check it. Main resources properties. Yeah, port number not available. So what is the default port number? 8080. On the container I am mapping to 80. Container will use 8080. On my machine I am mapping to 9090. Okay, dot. Sudo doc. Image name I need to give. Okay, right. Sudo docker run -d -p 9090:8080 space image name. Yes. So with this, what happened? Application got executed in the Docker container. Okay. So now let me go for security groups in our machine. Inbound rules 8080 already using by our normal Java web application. Now I should go for 9090, right? Save it. Perfect. Now take the public IP address, Docker VM, public IP, go here, public IP : 9090. Right. Am I able to access my boot application now? Boot application is running on the port number 9090. So here in this machine, how many containers are running now? Can you check it? Sudo docker ps. How many containers are available? How many containers are available? 2 containers are available on the same machine. That means what we have done is we have taken one Linux machine. This Linux machine having Ubuntu operating system. Okay. So in this machine, we have installed Docker. In this machine, we have installed Docker. By using that Docker, we have executed 2 containers. We have executed 2 containers. Now, so here our Java web application is executing. Here Spring Boot application is executing. Java web application is executing. Spring Boot application is executing. So this is one container. This is another container. This is one virtual machine. This is another virtual machine. So it is running on the port number 8080. This is also running on the port number 8080. Now again what we have done, these port numbers we map to host machine. This is also mapped to host machine. This is mapped to 8080 only. This is mapped to 99. So that is what we have done now. Okay, this machine is having public IP address. Okay, now this is public IP of this machine. Public IP of the machine. If I want to access Java web application, which port number I need to use? IP address : 8080. If I want to access a Spring Boot application, 9090. Because container ports are mapped to host port. All right. Guys, this Docker, this Spring Boot application GitHub repository I'm giving. How to Dockerize Java web application and how to Dockerize Spring Boot application. Below is the Docker file. Below is the Docker file for Spring Boot application. Yeah. Java web application will be packaged as a WAR file. For that, we are going to use Tomcat server. I have given one web application here. Spring Boot application will be packaged as a jar file, and for that embedded server will be available. This is the GitHub repository. Below is the Docker file for the Spring Boot application. So whatever the jar file you have, that jar file you need to specify. Here giving the name is optional. If you don't give the name, whatever the name available, it will copy to that name here. Okay. So Java, comma, -jar, comma, app.jar. So we are copying that and we are executing that jar file. Okay, good. Guys, let us see simple. I will show you another example. For example, if there is a Python application, if there is a Python application is available, then how can we deal with the Python application? So now go to Docker file. Can you see here? For Python Docker file, what we specified? What is from Python? Copy. Whatever the Python, for Java application, compilation is required. Python is a scripting language, right? Compilation not required. So now, whatever the Python code is available, you see, we no need to bother about this because we are not from Python. This is the logic to develop REST API by using Python. Okay, this is the logic to develop the REST API by using Python. By using Python Flask, we are developing a REST API. Okay, for the Python, there is a Docker file is available. Now, from Python, copy the code, go to work directory, directly execute the Python. Python will have .py. .py extension will be available. Execute the Python. Now, okay, let me clone Python application. Let me clone my Python application. Clear, right? ls-l, clone this, git clone, paste Python application. Right, I'm cloning my Python project. So go here, ls-l, Python application is available. cd space Python, ls-l. For us, Docker file is available. Python code is available. Docker file is available. Can we Dockerize Python application now? Can we Dockerize Python application? Docker file is available. Code is available. What we need to do now? Image creation and create the container. How to create the image? How to create the Docker image? Sudo docker build -t image name Python app space dot. I'm creating an image. Sudo docker build -t Python app space dot. Enter. It is creating the image for the Python application. Python application will run on the port number 5000. Python image is getting created. Python application image is creating. Yeah, guys, finally, the image got created for Python. Okay, check it. Sudo docker images. Now, in our system, Python is installed or not installed? Not installed. Python image got created. Can we run the image now? Yes. Sudo docker run -d -p port number. What is that? 5000. Okay. What is the image name? Python app. That's it. Application create, container created for the Python application. Go to our machine, 5000 port number we need to enable. Go to security group. Go to security group, inbound rules, add the rule, custom rule 5000. Save the rules. Okay. Go to IP address. Take this IP. Go to this IP, :5000. What happened? Welcome to Python application. So we are able to run Python application by using Docker. We are able to run our Java web application by using Tomcat server. We are able to run Spring Boot application by using jar5, and we are able to run Python application also. So total 3 containers are running in the machine. That means I have taken one Linux virtual machine. In that Linux virtual machine, I created 3 containers now. I created 3 containers. Now, Python application is also executing. Python app is executing. So 3 containers created. 3 containers, nothing but 3 virtual machines got created. 3 virtual machines got created. Are you clear with this? Yes, fine. So like this, we can Dockerize any kind of application. Docker is not only for Java. You can use a Docker for Java, Docker for .NET, Docker for Python, Docker for Angular, Docker for React also. Good. Now, Python application I'm not giving in the notes, guys. It's not required. If you want to practice, Git repository is available. Code is available. You go to Ashok IT School, you can type, go to repositories. You can just type as Python. You can see that Python plus Docker app is available. So here you can see that Docker file is available. Python code is available. If you open this Docker file, so this is the Docker file to Dockerize Python application. That's it. Good. So with this, we are clear with what is a Docker, why we need to go for a Docker, how to use Docker, Docker commands, right? How to Dockerize Java application, how to Dockerize Spring Boot application, and we have seen Docker commands also. And we are able to push Docker image to Docker Hub as well. Next one, the next topic is Docker Compose. We need to discuss a concept called Docker Compose. What is a Docker Compose? Why we need to go for Docker Compose? Docker Compose is used to manage multiple containers. Now, as of now, how many containers we are creating? 3 are separate. One is Java, one is Spring Boot, one is Python. Now, let us take our Spring Boot application. How many containers we are creating? We are creating only 1 container. But in the real-time project, we will have 1 container or we will have multiple containers. We will have multiple containers. For example, if you take the example as our application, our IES application. Okay, our IES application is having admin API. Admin API is 1 project, and we are having AR API, that is 1 project, and we are having DC API, that is 1 project, and we have CO API, that is 1 project. ED API is available. Okay, ED API is available. ED API is available. Then CO API is available, and BI API is available. Okay, and reports API is also available. Now, there are multiple microservices available in our application. So now, what is the meaning of microservice? What is the meaning of microservice? These are separate projects. We are following monolith architecture or we are following microservices architecture. We are following microservices architecture. So we are not developing everything in the single application. We are not developing everything in the single application. We are developing everything as a separate application. When it is separate application, separate jar file will be available. We need to run that in the separate server. Now, if you see, there are 7 projects are available. Nothing but we need to go for 7 containers. We need to create 7 containers. Now, instead of creating 7 containers manually, Okay, create the container 1, then go and create the container 2, create the container 3, create the container 4. So instead of creating the containers manually, instead of managing the containers manually, we can go for Docker Compose. When you go for Docker Compose, easily we can manage multiple containers in the application. Okay, guys. Now, here another example. If you take, I want one Spring Boot application. Okay, I want one Spring Boot application. For this, I need to create one container. This Spring Boot application should communicate with the database. This Spring Boot application should communicate with the database. Spring Boot app and database. So this Spring Boot application should communicate with the database. Okay, so this database will be created as DB container. Database we will run in one container, that is called DB container, and application will run in one Docker container, which is called app container. How many containers I need to create? 2 containers I need to create. One is called DB container, another one is called app container. So 2 containers I need to create. Here 2 containers are independent containers. These 2 containers are dependent containers. Dependent. Application is dependent on the database. First database container should be created, then only application container should be. For example, our application deployment will be done by DevOps people. As a developer, we know that when the application is starting, connection pool will be created by connecting with the database. Okay, so when the boot application is starting, database should be ready. Yes or no? So we are having application.properties file. When the project is starting, data source will be loaded, connection pool will be created. If a connection pool is created successfully, then only our application will be started successfully. Getting my point? Now, for example, in our project, DevOps engineer is available. That DevOps engineer don't know how Spring Boot application will connect with the database. What he has done is, first he created a Spring Boot container. He is trying to execute the Spring Boot container. Database is not created as of now. What will happen? What will happen? Application will try to connect with the database. Database is not available. Application execution will fail. So here, what is the sequence? What is the sequence? First database container should be created. Then Spring Boot application container should be created so that application can connect with the database. As a developer, I know the dependency. What about the DevOps team? They don't know the dependency. So this is the problem. If you manage the containers individually, this is the problem. So to overcome such a kind of dependencies among the containers, there is a tool called Docker Compose. There is a tool called Docker Compose. What is the purpose of Docker Compose? Docker Compose is used to manage multi-container based applications. Now, when I go for a Docker Compose, I will tell to Docker Compose, you create the application container, you create the database container. Remember, application dependent on the database. Then Docker Compose will create the database first, then it will create the application container. So we can tell which container is dependent on the which container by using Docker Compose. If you go for normal Docker, we need to create the containers manually. We need to take care of that. Which container should create first, which container should create next. That we need to know that. If I go for Docker Compose, it will take care of the dependencies among the containers. So that's why when we are going to Dockerize our application with multiple containers, Docker Compose is very, very, very important. Are you able to follow me? As of now, who is creating? Now, as of now, I created the container manually. From now onwards, I will create the container, or I will tell to Docker Compose to create the containers. I will tell to Docker Compose to create the container. So now tell me, what is Docker Compose? Why we need to go for Docker Compose? Docker Compose is used to manage multi-container based application. What is the meaning of multi-container based application? For our application, multiple containers are required. So instead of we are creating the multiple containers manually, we can use Docker Compose to create the containers. Are you able to follow me? Now, to work with the Docker Compose, we need to write Docker Compose YML. As of now, we are writing Docker file. What is the purpose of Docker file? Docker file is used to create only Docker image. Now I need a Docker image. By using that image, I need to create the Docker container. That work will done by Docker Compose. So which containers should be created? Which container should create first? Which container will create next? We will mention by using Docker Compose YML. So we need to write the separate YML. That YML is called as Docker Compose YML. Now here we need to install Docker Compose software separately. Already we have the Docker. Only Docker is not sufficient. We need to go for Docker Compose. Now let me write Docker Compose. Yeah. What is the Docker Compose? Docker Compose is a tool which is used to manage multi-container based applications. Now, if you take our major project as an example, how many containers are required? 7-8 containers are required. So all the 8 containers we can create at a time by using our Docker Compose. Docker Compose is a tool which is used to manage multi-container based application. Here we can create multiple containers at a time by using Docker Compose. Right? Now, using Docker Compose, we can define dependencies among the containers. Example, application container dependent on the database container. Using Docker Compose, we can define dependencies among the containers. Example, app container depends on DB container. App container depends on the DB container. Then what Docker Compose will do? First it will create the DB container, then it will create the app container. App container should connect with the DB container. So application will run in one container, database will run in the another container. There should be communication between application container to Docker container. Are you guys getting my point? One container should communicate with the another container. Right. Docker Compose is a tool which is used to manage multi-container based application. Multi-container based application means application which requires multiple containers. We can create multiple containers at a time by using Docker Compose. Using Docker Compose, we can define dependencies among the containers. App container depends on the DB container. So when we specify this, Docker Compose will create the DB container first, then it will create the app container. We will provide instructions to the Docker Compose by using Docker Compose.yml. We will provide containers information to Docker Compose tool using docker-compose.yml. We need to create one file. What is the name of the file? docker-compose.yml. In that YML file, we are going to specify what containers it has to create. Let me show you one simple example. Okay. Here I have the Docker Compose project. What is this? Spring Boot MySQL Docker Compose example is available. Now, if you see here, what is available? Docker file. What is the purpose of Docker file? To create the Docker image. Then what is this? Docker Compose. What is the purpose of Docker Compose file? To create the container. Okay. To create the image, I will use Docker file. To create the container, I will use Docker Compose. Are you guys getting my point? Go to the Docker file. What is it? We know that already. From expose here, copy the jar file, then execute the jar file. Okay. Next one. Here, if you see Docker Compose YML. So this is the content of the Docker Compose. What I am telling in the Docker Compose? Application, services. Services represents how many containers we need. So this representing application container, this representing database container. Okay, this is application container configuration and this is database container configuration. Are you guys getting my point? Now here, when we are running Docker containers, okay, application container, DB container. Let me take like this. This is app container and this is DB container. So one container should communicate with the another container. What is the meaning of one container? One container means one virtual machine. Okay. Spring Boot application will run in the one container. Database will run in the one container. Application should communicate with the database container. If two machines want to connect, they should be on the same network. Network communication is required. So that's why Docker will provide a network also that is called Docker network. We are going to specify, create one network with a name called Spring Boot DB network. Both containers should be created on the same network. Then only both containers can be connected. Application should communicate with the database. So here, Docker file is used to create Docker image. Docker Compose is used to create the container based on the image. Now, here Compose configuration, what I am specifying here, application depends on the database. Now, what will happen? First, database image will be created. Then application, first database container will be created. Then application container will be created. Okay, fine. This is Docker Compose YML. So in the Docker Compose YML, we will have version. What is the version of the Docker Compose? We will have services of that. We will have volumes for that. And we have network for that. So these are the things that we need to specify in the Docker Compose. What is the version of the Docker Compose we are using? Version 3 we are going to use. What are the services we are using? Services represents containers. How many containers you want? 2. One is application container. Second one is database container. Network. Both containers should run on the same network. We are going to specify one network name. And in the configuration, if you see database, database container should create by using which image? I want MySQL database. MySQL public image available. It will download that image and it will create the container for that. For the database, password should be root. Database name should be SVMS. These are database credentials. Okay. Now, application is available. My application image is this. Application port number 8080. Application depends on the MySQL database. This is MySQL DB. So when I execute the Docker Compose YML, first database will be created, then application will be created. Application will connect with the database. Application in one container, database in the another container. The magic is in the properties file. In the properties file, if you observe, container name we have to specify. Okay, here am I giving local host or am I giving MySQL DB? Why I am giving MySQL DB here? Why not local host? Database will run in one container, application will run in the another container. Application should access the database container. So here MySQL DB is the name of the container. If I give local host, what will happen? It will search in the same container. Database available in the same container, different container, different container. So in the properties file, we have to specify DB container name instead of the local host. If it is a cloud database, entry point we are going to specify here. Endpoint URL will be available. Okay. So this is Docker Compose. We need to download the Docker Compose first. Then we need to execute this Docker Compose. For the Docker Compose, again, separate commands will be available. Docker Compose up to create the containers. Docker Compose down to delete the containers, right? Now we will provide containers information to Docker Compose using Docker Compose YML. Docker Compose YML contains below elements. Docker Compose YML file contains below elements. Okay. Once the Docker Compose YML is available, we are going to use create Docker containers. Create Docker container using Docker Compose. The command for that is Docker Compose up. Earlier we used Docker run command. Now do I need to create the container manually or I will create the container by using Compose? Compose. What is the command to create the container by using Compose? Docker Compose up command, which will create the containers. Now I want to go for Docker Compose down. What is the meaning of Docker Compose down command? Stop the delete the container. Up means create the container, down means delete the container. Now here I can go for Docker Compose PS. What is PS? List the containers which are created by Docker Compose. Docker Compose up, Docker Compose down. Up means create the containers by using Docker Compose YML. Down means delete the container which are created by the Docker Compose. Are you guys clear? Yes. Now here Docker Compose. What is the purpose of Docker Compose? Why we need to go for Docker Compose? Docker Compose is a tool which is used to manage multi-container based application. We can create multiple containers at a time by using Docker Compose. So by using Docker Compose, we can define dependencies among the containers. App container depends on the DB container. We will provide containers information to Docker Compose tool using Docker Compose YML. Docker Compose YML contains below elements. What are those elements? Version, services, volumes, and network. What is the services section will represent? Containers information. I want one application container. I want one database container. Create a Docker container using Docker Compose YML. Okay, guys. Okay. Docker Compose up and Docker Compose down. Docker Compose down means delete the containers. Docker Compose stop means stop the containers. Docker Compose PS means display the containers which are created by Docker Compose. Up means create, down means delete. Stop means just stop the container. Again, once the containers are stopped, you can restart the containers by using compose start command. Okay. Now, so in the project, Docker file will be available. Docker Compose file also will be available. What is the purpose of Docker file? To build a Docker image. What is the purpose of Docker Compose? To create the container based on the image. Okay, good. Now, in the next session, we are going to install. We understood Docker Compose theoretically. We need to do the practical on that. Practical means we need to install Docker Compose software in our machine, and we need to Dockerize our Spring Boot application by using Docker Compose. So you have time tomorrow. I want you to do some research on that, how to Dockerize Spring Boot application with MySQL database by using Docker Compose. So you do some research, you try to implement that, doing some Googling, YouTube videos, n number of videos will be available in the YouTube. So I did not prepare a video on the Docker Compose, guys. You can check that and you try to implement it. If you are able to do it on your own, that will give you a lot of confidence. Yes, I'm able to learn some concept on my own. So if you are not able to do it, no problem. In the next session, I'm going to explain how to work with the Docker Compose. So always try to do self-learning, how to implement that concept on your own. Yeah, the reason is today in our course, I'm explaining AWS Cloud, how to do that. Tomorrow in the project, if they are using Azure Cloud, you have to learn on your own. So that self-learning is very, very important, guys. So now you understand 30% to 40% what is Docker Compose. Theoretically, you got the concept. Now, practical is pending. Try to do it on your own before coming to the next session. And one more thing, in the yesterday evening 5 p.m., you guys attended Spring Boot class, Angular class. I have taken Spring Boot batch for online people. I explained Apache Kafka with example, notes uploaded and video also uploaded. So please go through that video once so that you will understand how to develop the boot application by using Apache Kafka, how to develop a producer application, how to develop a consumer application. 1 hour video, guys. 5 o'clock I have taken class yesterday. You guys attended Angular. I have taken boot class there. Okay. So just go through that video. Notes also uploaded. You just practice that Spring Boot with Kafka integration. Fine. We will have next session on Monday. In the Monday session, we will work on Docker Compose concept. Monday morning, as usual, class will be available. In the Monday session, we will complete our discussion related to Docker software. Okay, Docker Compose is the last topic here. Once we complete the Docker Compose, we are good. Then we will start with either Kubernetes or Jenkins. Okay, fine. Anybody, any questions? Anybody having any questions? And guys, I have given you people names for the HR. So HR will call you either Monday. Today, anybody got the call? No. Monday, maybe they will call you for the screening test. Good. Fine. Thank you, guys. With this, I'm stopping now. We'll meet again on Monday. And one more thing, guys. Somebody told that someone is expired from our batch. Yeah, who is that guy? What is his name? Bishwajit. What is the problem? Huh? Blood injury. Platelets problem. Oh, okay. When he went to hometown? May में चले गए. तबीयत ठीक नहीं था क्या? He's having some problem. Okay, guys, all of you please spend 2 minutes for him. Stand up. Maybe his soul in the rest in peace. Just close your eyes. Yes, guys, done. Anybody from same village? Anybody from his village? कैसे पता चला आप लोगों को? How you came to know that? उसका दोस्त बोला. Fine, guys, good. We'll meet in the Monday session. Please practice that Docker, whatever we discussed, and try to work on Docker Compose. Okay, we'll see in the Monday's class. And Kafka video, so I will already uploaded in the portal. So please go through that before coming to next class. Thank you, guys.